This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Leonardo Radomile, graduate of our Life Accelerator. You've just flown into London. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. It's good to be here. And it was quite an experience going through the accelerator.
Yes. Well, I'm going to talk about that in a bit. Tell us more about you. Where are you from? What do you do? Tell us.
I grew up in the States, obviously, on the East Coast. Went to school in the Midwest. I started at the University of Chicago, then ended up at Harvard. Taught there for a while, and now we have an online education platform. I and some other people who are involved in the faculty. But what we're really interested in more than anything else is something that's really aligned with what London Real does. We go into large organizations and institutions like universities and big companies, and we help them develop meaning and purpose in their mission, and also build very, very strong bonds in their teams. Because, I mean, the two big problems today in a high-tech society are people are disconnected. You've got 300 Facebook friends, but nobody you can really, really, really rely on. And in addition to that, you know, nobody goes to church anymore, and universities don't deal with the big issues. So how do you find sort of a profound meaning and purpose in your life? So those are the two gaps that we fill in. And the accelerator's been very, very powerful in that regard, because in the work that we do, you can't transform people and organizations in a meaningful way unless they've really established their identity and know that significant change is possible. And that's where the accelerator is so critical. And I don't think anybody does it better than you guys do, and I really mean that. You can't go through the accelerator and not realize that I have enormous capacities and am capable and responsible for building the life that I want to live, and that I can actually do it. I mean, that's the starting point, and it's quite an experience. I mean, not only for myself, but for all the other people involved.
Yeah, and you're meeting them this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide that you wanted to do something like this? I mean, you kind of understand this business. It's not like you can't identify that people need certain help sometimes. So what brought you to us?
Well, I mean, I've been involved academically and in consulting work with this kind of work for like 30 years. Right. It's one thing to know it. It's another thing to experience it. For example, in our enterprise, we're really going to scale in a very big way right now. And I knew I needed something very catalytic to push me off the edge, to make me get involved as much and be at the top of my game, but in a very special way. And the experience that I had in making the videos at London Real, especially the relationship ones, where mine were very extensive, very deep, very self-revealing, that was very much a transformative experience even for me, because it forced me, in a sense, to put everything on the line and say, you know, to myself, you know, I'm willing to do anything to make this project that I'm working on successful, simply because it's so important to me and the other people involved, and there are no limits to what I could do. If it wasn't for that particular step, I would have never, that one piece would have never clicked in the powerful way that it has. And because of that, I've reached a level of effectiveness in this kind of work that I just never had before.
Why London Real?
Two things, a few things. First, I mean, looking at it from a purely business point of view, the brand quality, okay? I look at London Real in what it does, much like Apple. You know, after you have the first Apple experience, they don't have to sell you anything. It's, you know, it's a question of, you know, what have you got for me next? And London Real has that combination of quality and reliability, where you know the people, you and the people on the staff really, really care about what they're doing, really care about the people, and there's that level of excellence. And the other thing is, it's one thing to know things, it's another thing to experience them. And you go into such depth in those critical areas of human development, and not only explain things, but actually give people a path and then give them the support and hold them accountable so it actually gets done. And it's the experience, not the knowledge, that becomes transformative. We notice in the work that we do, which is sort of in another dimension, in that team building and meaning making, where we have you talked about Jocko Willings and extreme responsibility. I mean, in our teams, when someone, they're teams of 8 and you partner with a different person every week. Well, if you and I are partners, if you have 3 goals this week, I'm responsible for you reaching your goals. And you're responsible for me reaching my goal. It doesn't matter if I have to come over to your house at 3 o'clock in the morning and drag you out of bed, you're going to achieve your goals. And that intensity of interdependence, and you see that growing in the London Real communities, where that support and that accountability really makes things happen.
Talk to me about those first 2 weeks in the course. You're thrown in this Facebook group, all these people around the world uploading videos. What were those first 2 weeks like?
For me, I'm kind of used to circumstances like that, going into situations where I'm intensely involved with people for a short period of time, and then, with experiences. It was a very, very good experience. What was really transformative for me, particularly in the relationship segments, is it forced me to come to terms with some issues in a very, very public way that I hadn't done in 25 years of therapy. And it was really, really transformative in that regard.
Okay. Can you speak on that a bit more?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, I had an extremely brutal childhood. My family was, my father was an extremely violent alcoholic. I mean, there was an enormous amount of sexual abuse and things of that nature, and I ended up leaving home at a very early age. But I mean, those are crushing experiences, beatings and the other types of abuse. And it took me 20 years of therapy to come to terms with those things, and I never spoke about them publicly. But I realized in the other work that I'm doing that if I was going to be as effective and make the contribution that I could make, I had to come to terms finally with those ultimate demons. And I did a whole 25-minute video where I just laid everything out. It was sort of like Martin Luther saying, here I stand, right or wrong. I don't know what else to do. And that release through the accelerator was so incredibly empowering that I feel the difference in everything else that I do. And maybe other people won't get that experience. I don't know. I can only speak to my own experience. It was incredibly powerful.
Talk to me about your class members. What was it like meeting these people first online, and then now this weekend you're starting to see some of these faces? Can you describe the community and the effect it had on you?
They're good people. They're people who are committed to their own lives, and they not only are committed to their own lives, but realizing the only way that you can really go is to contribute, or grow is to contribute to other people's lives. And there's a degree of kindness, mutuality of concern. You get some really interesting people. And it's a great mix. You've got interesting people, you've got ordinary people, you've got weird people like me. It's a very, very good experience, and I know that I will be in touch with many of these people for, forever. You in a short period, it's sort of like analogous to being in a combat experience. I mean, you form very close bonds in a very short period of time because of the mutuality of experience.
Besides the relationship module, biggest challenge for you on the course?
The overall discipline of it, the discipline and accountability. I mean, you know, I've been meditating for years, but I never had the discipline to do it methodically, first thing in the morning and twice a day, period, end of story, without fail. So that kind of discipline. I've been a competitive athlete my whole life, but the whole thing about no matter what, you know, an hour and 20 minutes every day of body engagement, period, end of story. I mean, turning the things that you do and know that you have to do into rituals where they're just ingrained habits and they're done automatically. That's extremely powerful. It's like Jocko Willink said, you know, discipline is freedom. Mm. And it really is, and it's transformative at the same time.
Okay. And besides the relationship module, favorite module for you?
Body movement.
Okay. What kind of new things did you do with your body?
It was, I think the most interesting thing for me were the Ido Portal movements.
Okay.
They really were, because I've always been, you know, very paleo and very primal. You know, anything that brings us back to our, you know, to our hunter-gatherer lifestyle is really important. And it's really important in the work that we do, because, I mean, most of the problems that we have in the 21st century are from our being removed from how we evolved as human beings. I mean, 75,000 years ago, when we stopped evolving as a species, we were hunter-gatherers in groups of 50 to 75, totally interdependent on each other for survival. I mean, we had to depend on each other. And in addition to that, we lived in a magical world, okay, that was filled with spirits and myths and things like that. Now what happens, you know, you've got, instead of being totally interdependent with each other, you've got 300 Facebook friends and no one you can rely on. You know, religion has lost its functionality of dealing with the transcendent. How do you approach life's mysteries and magnificence? There's no mechanism for that. And, you know, people are removed from their bodies. You know, they eat junk, they sit in one position, and, you know, people aren't alive anymore. And the great thing about the accelerator is it touches on those issues and starts that cognitive dissonance, and people get the feeling of, oh, wait a minute, this is what I'm supposed to be doing because I can feel it in my body, or I can feel it in my guts. And we do something that's aligned with that, and, you know, you get into the meaning and purpose and close bonds that people build, and they feel, oh my God, you know, I'm in a community where I can really be myself and really look at the big issues, you know, without fear. And those are just, you know, very, very powerful things. And the accelerator really does a great job in bringing people into that domain.
Sounds like you really understood a lot of the design behind this course.
Oh, absolutely.
And again, back to that physical, I mean, we have people, you know, for 7 days on Module 4, just have a new movement practice every day.
Exactly.
And it's supposed to kind of freak them out. You know, I don't do Tai Chi, I don't do yoga, I don't do animal movements, I don't do burpees, I don't dance, I don't do spinal waves. A lot of people say that, and then they do those things. And the idea, yeah, is we're trying to get you back in touch with a reality we once knew.
Exactly.
And one we need to get back to, and by any means necessary,
Yeah.
really.
And we're built, that's how we're built.
Yes.
And we can't get away from our nature. We are what we are.
Yeah, yeah. The experience is, well, it's kind of just beginning, but the class is over.
Uh-huh.
How do you see this affecting you for the next year, whether it's the people you meet or the habits you're going to kind of keep with you? What does the rest of your journey look like now?
It's definitely the habits that I'm going to keep with, that I've developed. I will certainly keep in touch with a number of the people. And what I've noticed is this new project that we're launching, it's making me much more effective in that regard. I feel much more at ease. I feel much more effective. I feel much more connected to what I'm doing. So both professionally and personally, it's had quite an impact.
Why do you think you feel much more connected now to that project? I know you said the Life Accelerator, you kind of took it because you felt like, all right, I need to get more present, more connected to me and my goals and things. But is that what happened?
Well, you know, I'm probably not, I may or may not be a typical case. I mean, I had certain life issues that I've been struggling with my whole life. And I knew that, you know, there were certain things that were holding me back to be, whatever I was capable of being and make the contribution that I was capable of making. So I had what I term in our programs residual reluctance, that little bit that was just holding you back from going 100%. And having watched you over the years, I had the sense that this experience would release that, and in fact that it did. So, thank you.
You're welcome. You told me next door in the war room that you were one of the first person to buy a London Real T-shirt.
Yes.
And so you've been with us for quite a long time. For someone who doesn't know much about London Real, how would you describe it to them?
It's interesting. London Real is a curator of information, ideas, and methods on the cutting edge of what human beings are capable of. There's so much going on, and this is the work I did at university and continue to do professionally. There's so much going on in neuroscience, biochemistry, biomechanics, aging. For the first time, we're editing people's DNA. Human evolution happened unconsciously for millennia. Now, for the first time, human beings are controlling how we evolve physically and how we evolve socially and mentally. And there's so much going on. The London Real is an extremely reliable clearinghouse of where to go to find out what's going on. And then with things like the accelerator, the business accelerator, the podcasting program, to be able to actually participate and implement and engage in those things that are, starting to push the species forward. So that's how I would describe it.
Okay. If we took a walk downstairs and bumped into the Leonardo that didn't take this course, how would that guy be different than the suave and connected man I look at now?
Well, he'd still be suave and connected, but there's always that feeling of doubt inside. Like somebody's going to find out that I'm really a fake, that no matter what you accomplish, it doesn't register. It's like, yeah, you've got all these degrees from Harvard and you're a fellow of this society and a fellow of that society, but you never feel it inside. And what's really happened is I'm really experiencing in my mature life. I'm really starting to experience these things internally, which is a very, very different thing. The French have an expression where they say, feeling comfortable in your own skin.
Right.
And I can honestly say that was probably part of the most important experience that I had in the accelerator.
You seem very comfortable in your own
Oh,
skin.
yeah.
I'm slowly getting there. Last question to someone who's watching or listening who isn't sure about whether they want to jump into something like an accelerator or go in and be held accountable by us and things like that. What would you say to them, or how would you describe things?
Well, one of the things that I found, and I grew up in a very, very structured, environment, very disciplined, structured environment. Eventually, you have to recognize that if your life is going to change, it's like they say at Google or Facebook, move fast and break things. You simply have to take risks. One of the things that I live by is Helen Keller's famous statement: life is either a daring adventure or it's nothing. And if you want to be alive, at certain crucial points in your life, you just have to be willing to fail and fail miserably for the ability to grasp what's ahead of you. And the truth of the matter is, it's like Mark Twain says, the greatest enemies and greatest problems I ever faced never happened. It's that fear of anticipation. And if you can find, an organization like London Real, or, in the work that we do in those other areas where you can see excellence and you can trust people, it's ridiculous not to do it. So, you've got to take the risk. And, it's an investment and you have to pay for it because you have to be invested in it. it's important that that you have to stretch. A lot of people have to stretch a little bit financially, because it forces them to take, stuff. It's different from watching a YouTube channel where you can say, well, I can come back to this anytime. No, you've paid good money for it. You've got all of this support, and you've got people holding you accountable. It actually gets done. That's the difference.
Leonardo, I think it was that first live call where I saw you there, and I think we chatted on that first one. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy's special. I don't know, but your energy came through that tiny screen on my iPad. And I just was so impressed by how you just dove in to every aspect of this course. You didn't judge it. And let's face it, you're no spring chicken. And yet you're there willing to learn and change, along with all the teenagers and 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds on the course. And, I thought you crushed it. And I just loved how you you came with everything with like a beginner's mind, And like you said, you had been meditating. You had a physical practice. You're in good shape. You have good nutrition. And yet you didn't judge each course, each module. You were like, okay, let's see what I can get out of it. And I think that's why you got so much out of this course. And it was just an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
We structure the course. We hold people accountable. I do the live calls, but the community is something that's just amazing. When you get London Reelers in the same space, especially people that are investing in themselves, man, people have told me on every single accelerator they would have paid for the community alone.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're one of those people that just lifts people up. They see your experiences. If Leonardo can do it, why can't I do it? If
Precisely.
this person can do it, why can't that person do it? So I just want to thank you for being
pleasure.
a part of it.
A pleasure. One of the things that we're launching next month, which is going to be really interesting nationally, is something that I think is very aligned with the accelerator, because, we were talking about hunter-gatherers, and hunter-gatherers lived, interdependently in a magical world. Well, all the magic's gone out of life, okay? Where do people deal with the profound, the transcendent? When you walk into your son's room at 3 o'clock in the morning and see him sleeping in his innocence, and feel that beauty in your heart, that takes your breath away, there's something else, okay? Those aren't just hormonal reactions. So how do we introduce people back into the profound, the mystical, what religion used to do, but sometimes in a toxic way, and give them that sense of a vocabulary and a way of exploring the beauty of life's mysteries, and at the same time build tribes where people can share that in identity, and then make them all take the accelerator.
You have some great thoughts there, and yeah, I saw him sleeping in his bed last night around 1 a.m.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is an amazing thing, and I agree. It's something about being connected to that mystical. So, well, I think you really understand what we're doing here. Again, thank you for being a part of London Reel for the last 5 years, and for the future, I expect we're going to be seeing a lot more of each other going forward.
Count on it.
So as we say, it's about the journey, and I wish you all the best on yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.